Strait of Hormuz isn't just a headline, folks. It's a pressure cooker now. The U.S. naval blockade is still locked in. Shipping lanes are throttled, and every nation with a stake in global energy is watching this standoff like it's the 2-minute warning of a football game. My guest today served in the Navy. Hospital Corpsman Petty Officer Caden Samuels will join us next. And he knows exactly what it means when destroyers, carriers, and logistics ships start forming patterns that aren't meant to be broken. We're talking about a choke point where 20 to 25% of the world's oil moves, now squeezed by a blockade. That's testing diplomacy, testing alliances, and testing the nerves of every captain on the water. The question hanging over all of it: how long can this hold before someone misreads a radar ping, a radio call, or a shadow on the horizon? Welcome to the Joe Rossano Show. Our guest today, former hospital corpsman, Petty Officer Caden Samuels, United States Navy, going to give us his opinion of what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz, what the Iranian conflict actually means, and how it can affect not only the Middle East, but the United States. And what part is Israel playing in the negotiations, the ceasefire, and how this is all affecting us, especially at the gas pump. Before I bring on our guest, I kindly ask you to please, again, if you're searching for the truth, which is what you're going to get right now, please subscribe, like, share with your friends. That's important. Click the notification bell for all latest episodes of the Joe Rossano Show, and please comment. I will be back tomorrow about 1 p.m. live. I'm going to answer your questions. I'm going to respond to your comments. Joining us, former hospital corpsman, Petty Officer Caden Samuels. Petty Officer Samuels, thank you very much for this time.
Thank you for having me, Joe. It's a pleasure.
My family and I, we graciously appreciate your service.
Thank you.
Now, as I discussed with the audience yesterday, and I kind of took them through what was going on in the blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. As you know, the United States has a full blockade. Ships coming in, ships coming out are being inspected. There are, as you know, sea mines that have been dropped in several different positions in the Strait of Hormuz, and they have drifted towards Qatar, Dubai, United Arab Emirates, etc. Basically, from someone who spent time in the United States Navy, what would you say is going on there in the Strait of Hormuz?
So it's definitely an interesting time. I would say it's super strategic. So in the beginning of this war, they said basically they were going to overthrow Iranian regime. They were going to have an uprising in the country. The people were going to take to the streets, take over the country, and we were going to help them and get out of there. Obviously, that's not what happened. They tried that. They tried to install like a revolution. That failed miserably. Instead, it looks to me that the people of Iran have taken to the streets and they have, I would say, more of a national pride, more of a cohesiveness within the country. You know, they're standing up against big, bad America, the imperialists, Israel, the West, whatever, right? I think this war was really based on American arrogance, to be honest with you. Iran's really strong. They've been around for thousands of years. America's only 250 years old. You know, we spend the most money. We have the biggest military. But with that being said, we're super stressed. We're super stretched across the entire globe. You know, you got Europe and Ukraine going crazy. We're sending tons of our weapons over there. Now we got the Middle East kicking off. With that being said, China's sitting on the back door, just sleeping, just watching. And not only are they watching, they're learning every strike that's happening, every target, how we're fighting, what our weaknesses are. And I don't really think that this conflict is strengthening America at all. I think, to be honest, this conflict was totally based for Israel because I believe that Israel, this is their last chance with the American support that we have. You know, they have, I would say, a big influence on our government, our media. Whether you look at Fox News, CNN, whatever it is, the money behind it are these billionaire Israelis. And that's really where the interest is. And when Netanyahu comes over to Congress, you can see that he has both sides of the aisle standing and applauding everything he says. Not even the president of the United States can do that. So I think they have tremendous pull over us, and it may not be in our best interest. Now, with getting back to the Hormuz Strait, you're talking about a choke point in the world that is about 21 miles wide, which is not very big. Now, I think it's 25% of the world's oil comes through there, which doesn't sound like a big number. But when you're talking about countries like South Korea, Japan, these islands that don't have oil, they totally rely on this strait being open. And if it's not open, Japan has huge reserves, but their reserves will be wiped out in less than a year. And, that sounds like a long time, tons of oil. But when you're talking about an entire country, like, you're going to run out and then you're doomed. You're done. So it is strategic. I've heard sides that say that, Trump, he wants to close the strait to make other countries more dependent on America, strengthen the oil industry at home, stuff like that. But it's kind of reckless. And they've been putting in the media that they didn't know that it was going to get mined. They didn't know that they were going to close it. I knew that, and I'm nobody. You know what I mean? They definitely knew this. It was definitely in the war plans and the war games. Maybe they didn't think they were actually going to carry it out. They wanted to test it, or they just wanted to make them do it and then go from there. They already know what was going to happen. So it's a big thing. I mean, when you put mines in a 21-mile wide waterway, you going in order to get all the mines out, you have to sweep for all the mines. You have to have mine sweepers sweeping for everything. And nothing's 100%, right? Nothing's 100%. So any mine could blow up a ship. And not just that, to have a ship to go through international waters, you got to have insurance. What insurance company is going to want to insure a ship going through the Strait of Hormuz when it could get blown and get sent to the bottom of the sea? It's a big problem all around, and just hope that Trump has a good strategy.
Well, you alluded to a few points, and it seems to be the consensus. And we've covered that here on the Joe Rossano show. It does seem like Israel does have quite a bit of influence over the United States. And there was something that BB or Benjamin Netanyahu said that raised an eyebrow with me. He said that, one of the most important companies that we have to, I guess he said, not in so many words, try to control was TikTok. And so far as X Twitter is concerned, he also went on to say, we need to talk to Elon, right? What do you mean talk to Elon? I mean, Elon Musk bought the company to strengthen the First Amendment. As you know, President Trump was banned from Twitter. And again, Elon Musk reinstated the president of the United States' account. Yeah, but again, the Tucker Carlsons, the Candace Owens, many others, and what would be considered conservative commentators do believe that, yes, that there is quite a bit of Israeli influence here in the United States. Now, my question would be, again, it would seem to your average layman, someone like myself who did not serve, that, Israel should be a employee of the United States. Why so much influence?
Now, everything goes back to conspiracy, right? And I think this one is clear as day, not a conspiracy. And if anything, many conspiracy theories these days have totally come true. I don't think that Israel has influence over us. I think that they dominate us. I think that they, through mega corporations such as BlackRock, Vanguard, they own everything in America, okay? When you drive down the street in any city, Baltimore, wherever you go, look at all the stores. I don't care. Look at any store you're driving down. And if it's a publicly traded company, the number one owners of these companies are going to be BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, you name it, corporate conglomerates. And these people are the billionaire class. This is the Epstein class, you know what I mean? The one percenters, whatever you want to call it. But they own everything, right? They own Hollywood, okay? They own the media through left wing, right wing. You got everybody fighting. Oh, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, yada, yada, abortion, whatever you want to argue about. They're all serving the same agenda. Every few years, You're going to clap for Trump, Kamala, whoever it is. The same people are in power. The same people control the military. And the bombs are going to continue to drop in the Middle East. I mean, it's like it's just a pretty wild time, and I think we're going through an information revolution through Elon Musk and Twitter. I think he's a great patriot by opening up Twitter and just letting people have open dialogue and freedom of speech. It's
Absolutely.
super it's super important to us, as an Americans. That's a right that we're supposed to have. And when Trump got in with Pam Bondi, one of the first things that they went and did was try to pass anti-Semitism laws, hate speech. And that's not what American is. I'm not for hatred. I have friends, total diversity, whatever. But with that being said, we're all guys. We all, joke around, whatever, say racist shit here and there, back and forth. It's just a joke. It's America. I don't care. Everybody wants to be so professional, whatever. When you're with your boys, you're talking crazy talk. It's just what it is. I do martial arts at a martial arts gym, and we have guys from different countries, different backgrounds. I got a guy from Afghan in the class, you know what I mean? Black dudes, you name it, but everyone comes together and everyone talks, and it's pretty interesting just to see different perspectives, because not everybody's a Republican or liberal, not even from the same country, you know what I mean? So I just think it's really important to have open dialogue and debate. Even if you don't agree with someone, you should just hear them out and make your own opinion.
Now, Prime Minister Netanyahu said since 1996, Iran is going to have a nuclear weapon in a week, 6 months. Iran has the capability right now to make 10 bombs in 2002, 2005, 2012, 2015, 2025. Let me ask you, now here's what we know about Iran. Iran did have bunkers about 300 feet underground, heavily fortified, had enriched uranium up to 60%. And you may or may not know, Petty Officer Samuels, they had a space program. And as Secretary Rubio said, they certainly aren't going to the moon. How close would you say Iran was to having a nuclear weapon, and what would a nuclear armed Iran look like?
That's a great question. I think through my generation and the generations before me, we've seen clear as day the same playbook been played out in Iraq, weapons of mass destruction. We went there, did what we had to do, war for a decade, and there was no weapons of mass destruction. This is the same playbook, and I can't believe people are falling for it. Iran is enriching uranium, but with that being said, they have never not complied with the IAEA weapons inspections. Obama, created the Iran nuclear deal with them. They complied. They had international UN weapons inspectors at all times. They've never failed. Trump was actually the one to come in and tear up the deal. Why would they have to abide by anything when he threw the deal out? You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make any sense. That's just American arrogance, just saying you're going to do as I say, and Iran's much stronger. They have a very, very high level missile arsenal. They have hypersonic weapons, some of the top missile arsenal in the world, right there with Russia, Iran, China. They're all partners in this game. I think that Trump wants out of this because he understands that this is an unwinnable war. You're not dropping, to my understanding, I don't believe you're dropping ground troops into Iran. It's a mountain fortress. How would you do it? Would you send planes over top and airborne everybody in? The planes are going to get shot out, right? Are you going to send ships through the Strait of Hormuz and drop thousands of Marines like back in World War II and storm the beaches? That's not this day and age. We live in a drone warfare society where they can send these $50,000, $50,000 drones, hundreds of them, and swarm you. How are you going to defend that? You can't. You literally cannot. And if you say you're going to blow them out the air, right? You're going to, send $1 million interceptor to kill a $50,000 drone? How many interceptors are we producing a month? 15, 20, 50? Whatever it is, They can produce a lot more drones than we can produce interceptors, and the mathematical calculation is terrible.
At the end of the day, let me ask you this. According to the president, and we all know that the president is, let's say the president, okay, claims that the Iranian Navy is at the bottom of the Persian Gulf, that they can't get a plane in the air, their weapons are depleted, etc., etc. Is that true?
Now, I believe that Iran has taken tremendous loss. Okay. They're going up against the world superpower, America. You know, we have a huge military, super high tech. Um, we can drop tons of bombs. That's what we're great at. We can drop bombs all day long, have air superiority, whatever you want. And our Navy's amazing. We definitely have the best Navy in the world, no doubt about it. That's why we're able to do these adventures in other parts of the world. You know, you don't really see other countries doing what we're capable of doing. With that being said, it's not always to our benefit. I don't think that this was a good idea. And I don't think that Americans are better off today than when we were before this conflict started. And I think Trump wants out. So whether he can do that, I'm not sure. The new supreme leader was his father was killed, his wife was killed, his children were killed in this war. All of the top military brass and their strategics have been slaughtered during negotiations and multiple times in Qatar, our ally. They've been bombed during negotiations. I mean, we're like the international law, the playbook that we've went by since World War II or whatever is completely gone. That is no longer in effect, and we look like savages on the world stage.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you brought up another interesting point, ground forces. Now, the American people do not want a ground attack, do not want as and forgive me for this term, but do not want boots on the ground. Okay. And Trump is well aware of that. So at the end of the day, the Strait of Hormuz, as you said, and you are absolutely correct, 20 to 25% of the world's oil goes through there. Now, Asia, as you also mentioned, is very dependent upon that oil. Not only Japan, South Korea, China, about 50%, about 80% Japan, about 70% South Korea. What now if you have basically cut off 50% of China's oil supply, what where is China fitting into this? And is this now here's the conspiracy. Is this part of the strategy is to strangle the world's energy supply as the United States has done in Venezuela and now in the Strait of Hormuz to make countries like China dependent on United States oil?
Sure. I'm sure that that goes into the playbook and the thinking behind all this. Now, with that being said, when we zoom out a little bit and we stop being so naive, I don't think that this war and what's going on in the Middle East and Iran has anything to do about America, America independence, America security. I truly believe that Israel is basically at all out war right now with Gaza, with Lebanon, and now Iran. I think everything that's going on over there is for Israeli hegemony in the region and Israeli dominance in the region. And in order to do that, they have to destroy Iran, their ways of making money, which is their oil exports, the control of the strait, and getting China out of the Middle East because China is very, just like Iran, is very, very, very strong. They have shown tremendous restraint, as China always does. You know, they're not super expansionist. You know, they're more focused at the home. They do a lot of investment into other countries where we're more of a spreading democracy, just going around the world, blowing people up, enforcing demands. I think those times are kind of coming to an end as we're starting to see that. Our force posture was reorganized. When I was in the military, the Marine Corps had gotten rid of all their tanks. You know what I mean? They sold them to the Army. And they're realizing that these old methods of warfare are completely going away in the new day and age when we need to be able to go to another land far away, drop in, complete the mission and get out. You know, we're not looking for prolonged 10, 20-year conflicts where we can just funnel as much money as possible. Just, Dick Cheney's, right? I don't know. We have huge problems. We have very big problems. And that's why these people get paid tons of money. That's why you have huge teams. And these guys aren't always right. You know what I mean? These things are super unpredictable. One escalation leads to another. Nobody wants to look weak, right? No one wants to surrender. Iran has not surrendered. They keep fighting. They keep destroying key targets all over Israel, all over the Middle East. You see these other countries, they have not stepped up to bat, and I think that's for a reason. I think they realize what they're up against, and they'd rather just let America fight it out, because that is why they have the petrodollar. That's why they trade their oil in US dollars for our security. But right now we're kind of exposing our weakness, and maybe these countries reorganize under different defense.
Well, and I will say this as an American, I was a little disappointed in NATO's response. I mean, again, we have got no help basically from England, Germany, France, the Arab states, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, among others, have been more of an ally than our NATO partners. And you believe, I assume, that they think that Iran is much more strategically prepared and stronger than, let's say, Iraq was back in 2003. Do we agree on this?
Iran has an interesting strategy. They don't need to defeat the United States militarily to come out of this conflict better. They need to strangle the world economy and make America get out. And that's what they're doing right now. That's why they've closed the strait. That's why they have sent oil prices up. Trump has, to my understanding, released a little bit less than half of America's strategic reserves to manage oil prices. This is just the beginning. This war could take many, many, many years. When this first started, they said it was going to take weeks, months. We'd be in, we'd be out. They'd throw over the regime, whatever. It's not looking like that. Iran has prepared for this war for decades. They've watched us destroy Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, you name it. The Middle East has literally been destroyed. And these are the last, powerhouse standing. And they've built underground facilities that are so deep that you cannot destroy them with conventional weapons, bunker busters, whatever. They've designed these underground bases for this exact purpose. You can't bomb your way out of this. The only way you can destroy them is to get inside and destroy what's inside of them, or you need to nuke them. You need a nuclear weapon, which can be a tactical nuclear weapon, whatever it is, that will penetrate deep enough to completely destroy it. And are we ready to go to nuclear war over this? When Russia has been fighting Ukraine, for years now, they've shown tremendous restraint. They haven't used nuclear weapons. We don't want to do that, because that opens up Pandora's box. And that's just not good strategy. You know what I mean? So we're in a super challenging time, because that's why they keep saying, hey, we're going to drop in ground troops, because you have to get inside. You cannot destroy them from the outside. That's what they're built for. I've read estimates, 50,000 or more. You're never going to know, right? That's top secret stuff. But huge stockpiles of the most advanced ballistic missiles, drones, you name it. Everything that they've shot from the beginning of the war, you think they're shooting the new stuff? They're shooting all the old stockpiles that have been around forever, emptying them out, wiping them out, taking, the air defenses of Israel, the Iron Dome, whatever. They can defend against these older ballistic missiles, but they're depleting their air defense. And then guess what? The longer this plays out, the less air defense, the more advanced weapons come out. And it's not looking good.
So at the end of the day, chips fall on the table. We get down to the brass tacks. They're supposed to restart talks between the United States, Iran, as early as this week. Petty Officer Samuels, where does this story end?
I think Trump needs an off ramp. I think he needs to get out of this. I think he also needs to look on the world stage to the American people that we've won. I don't believe that we've won. He needs to make it look like we've won. And Iran's not willing to do that. They are not, they prepared for this conflict. They are not going to just surrender like Trump wanted. Remember, he wanted total surrender of Iran. Didn't happen, right? He wanted zero enrichment. He wanted to get rid of their ballistic missile program that will threaten Israel. You name it. He wanted them to do all these demands, and they've said no. They want America out of the Middle East. They want all of the bases out of the Middle East. If you take a look at the U.S. military bases in the Middle East, it surrounds Iran. And you can tell me,
Yes.
is that a defensive or aggressive force posture? To me, that's very aggressive. And they've shown that they can strike anywhere, anytime with hypersonic weapons. Hypersonic weapons cannot be intercepted. That's very clear. They could actually use these hypersonic weapons to blow up the ships, the destroyers that carry thousands of sailors. And so can China, right? They have shown tremendous restraint because I don't think that is their goal. I don't think their goal is to destroy America's military. They would if they could, right? But we're very strong, and I think that they want to choke the economy and teach America a big lesson on arrogance.
As you stated, and you are absolutely correct, the late Vice President Dick Cheney was adamant about Eurasia. Okay, yes, the if you looked at a map of the United States air bases and posture, as you say, yeah, the only place was missing was Iran. So yeah, so there will not be air bases in Iran then, correct? We agree on this? I mean, that's not gonna happen,
Sure,
right?
sure, sure.
So again, this story ends with what? A permanent ceasefire?
No, Iran does not want a ceasefire. They have saw through Gaza, through many different examples throughout the Middle East in time that especially Israel, United States and Iran could agree to a ceasefire tomorrow. Will Israel abide to that ceasefire? They have violated every single ceasefire multiple times in Gaza, right? I
Yes,
mean,
they have.
Netanyahu
Certainly
is
have.
Netanyahu. Um, he's a wartime leader, right? I mean, he's in a difficult position because he at home is on trial for corruption. He's wanted by his own government. You know, they're trying to trial him, as well as the International Criminal Court has already warranted him as a war criminal for war crimes
Yes,
in Gaza. So he
that's
is fighting,
correct.
as well as he has cancer and who knows what stage, but he's fighting for not only his political survival, but just his survival, you know, as a human. So I don't think that he cares. And I think that Israel has certain military objectives and they will use him as the vassal to complete whatever they need to do because he's on his way out anyways, whether he dies or who knows what happens, right? Most likely nothing, but it's just the situation that we're in. And he looks like he's out of his fucking mind, to be honest with you.
And that I don't think that anyone will argue with you. Hospital Corpsman Petty Officer Samuels, we graciously appreciate again you taking some time for us today. And as mentioned, myself, my family, and the folks here in the country, we graciously appreciate your service, sir. And thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.
My dear friends and fellow Americans, what we're seeing in the Strait of Hormuz right now isn't just military posture, it's a global stress test. The blockade consider this, has slowed the world's most important shipping corridor to a crawl. Every hour that this stays in place, the stakes rise. Hey, my guest made one thing very, very clear. This isn't about who blinks first, it's about whether anyone can afford to blink at all. And he was very clear, and many people believe what role Israel has played in all of this and Prime Minister Netanyahu's thought process, and not only his thought process, but his actions. As the world waits for the next move, diplomatic or otherwise, one truth stands out. Stability in that narrow stretch of water is holding together a lot more than just shipping routes. It's holding together the balance of the entire region. And until this blockade lifts, that balance stays razor thin. If you want the strategy story as it unfolds, stay locked in right here. And I got to tell you, please subscribe, like, comment, share with your friends, click the notification bell. All latest episodes of the Joe Rossano Show. I'll be back tomorrow, 1 o'clock, to answer your questions, to respond to your comments, and that is going to be live. YouTube.com at the Joe Rossano Show. You can also catch us on Twitch, Instagram, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn, all at the Joe Rossano Show, for the exception of X Twitter, that is at Real Joe Rossano. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless you. Don't forget to adopt a pet. We'll see you next time.